Isn't it truly striking how an entire generation, showered with affirmations from childhood, was consistently told they were destined for greatness and truly special? They poured their effort into education and careers, working diligently, often far exceeding the expectations set for them by society and their own parents. Yet, despite all this relentless effort and boundless optimism, they somehow find themselves struggling to secure the fundamental quality of life that seemed so readily attainable and completely normal for the generation just before them. This unprecedented socioeconomic quandary is, in essence, a profound psychology experiment, one that absolutely no one consciously volunteered for, shaping the very fabric of their existence. We're, of course, talking about millennials, that significant demographic born between the years 1981 and 1996, a group often misunderstood and easily dismissed. And before you find yourself reaching for a dismissive eye roll or a quick judgment, I urge you to pause and truly stay with us, as this narrative delves into uncomfortable realities that you likely haven't fully considered or deeply contemplated. The stark, undeniable truth is that millennials have become the very first generation in the annals of modern American history to be widely and realistically expected to be financially worse off than their own preceding generation. This isn't mere speculation or anecdotal evidence. Esteemed institutions like the Pew Research Center unequivocally confirmed this jarring trend as back as 2020, solidifying its place as a sobering reality. Consequently, we now observe an entire and vast demographic navigating their daily lives, walking amongst us, carrying within them this truly bizarre and unsettling psychological cocktail. It's a perplexing concoction where the sweet taste of genuine achievement is inextricably blended with the bitter notes of perceived failure, swirling together in their minds day in and day out, forming a unique and challenging internal landscape. Imagine being a child, consistently told throughout your formative years that you possessed limitless potential, capable of achieving absolutely anything your heart desired, winning every challenge and reaching the pinnacle of success. Then picture the abrupt collision with reality, graduating from an expensive education directly into the unforgiving jaws of a major economic recession, a landscape utterly devoid of the promised opportunities. The symbolic participation trophy of their youth, once a token of effort, ironically transmuted into an exorbitantly priced master's degree, whose cost now rivals what an entire home once commanded. This profound clash between belief and reality creates what psychologists term cognitive dissonance, a mental discomfort that millennials are, quite frankly, drowning in. But hold on, this isn't merely about the pervasive burden of student loans or the easy jest of avocado toast. The psychological implications run far deeper and are more insidious than commonly acknowledged. Esteemed psychologist Dr. Jean Twenge dedicated extensive research to this phenomenon, even penning the seminal book, Generation Me, meticulously dissecting the very essence of this generational psyche. Her pivotal findings revealed a striking trend. Millennials consistently register significantly higher on established narcissism scales compared to any preceding generation. However, here's the unsettling paradox that truly challenges conventional understanding. This same generation also exhibits markedly elevated scores in both anxiety and depression. Consider the profound irony. A generation that simultaneously holds an ingrained belief in their own exceptionalism and unique worth, yet concurrently battles overwhelming feelings of utter worthlessness and inadequacy. It presents as a deeply ingrained trauma response, meticulously packaged and outwardly projected with the polished veneer of a professional LinkedIn profile. Let us truly consider the precise historical timeline. The millennial generation, unique among their peers, became unwitting test subjects for every single pioneering parenting trend that emerged from the burgeoning self-esteem movement of the 1980s and 90s. We witnessed the rise of the ubiquitous helicopter parent, hovering protectively, meticulously clearing paths. Coupled with this, the widespread adoption of the everyone gets a trophy mentality, celebrating effort over outcome. This era ingrained a potent message. You are inherently intelligent, valuable, and special simply by existing, not for any specific achievement. Crucially, these practices were not born from malice. They were, in fact, earnest, well-intentioned attempts at fostering healthy development, meticulously shaped by the very best psychological understanding available at the time. Then, a seismic shift occurred. Just as these young millennials entered their early 20s, ready to launch their careers, the global economy imploded with devastating force in 2008. They found themselves graduating, armed with their optimism and qualifications, directly into an utterly transformed job market, one that had fundamentally changed its very rules and expectations overnight. Suddenly, the economic reality they were forced to navigate was a cruel, bewildering landscape, entirely disparate from the stable, opportunity-rich world they had been so carefully prepared for. The sheer psychological whiplash from this abrupt collision of their pampered upbringing with an unforgiving economic downturn was so severe, so disorienting, it alone should have merited widespread psychological intervention. The economic reality was a brutal awakening. But beyond this financial shockwave, another monumental force reshaped this generation: social media. Millennials encountered these nascent platforms like Facebook and Instagram precisely during their most impressionable years. Not as innocent children, but as impressionable teenagers and young adults, when their very sense of self was still incredibly fluid and vulnerable to external influence. Facebook emerged in 2004, followed by Instagram in 2010. This meant an entire generation was compelled to learn the intricate dance of adulting, while simultaneously mastering the art of meticulously curating and performing their entire lives for an ever-present, critical online audience. As Dr. Tim Kasser's extensive research on materialism and well-being starkly illustrates, when individuals begin to tether their fundamental self-worth to external validation, a phenomenon intrinsically built into the very fabric of social media interaction, the inevitable consequence is a dramatic and measurable decline in their overall mental health. Imagine the relentless pressure. You are, in essence, compelled to operate a perpetual 24/7 public relations campaign for your own existence. It's a constant performance, where the poles of public opinion and validation quite literally never close, exacting an immense psychological toll. And as if this wasn't enough, this generation finds itself increasingly delaying or even outright foregoing many of the traditional life milestones that historically provided a sense of achievement and structure. Adding to this immense pressure, millennials are increasingly delaying or even entirely circumventing the traditional markers of adulthood, those cherished life milestones that once provided a clear path and a strong sense of adult identity. Things like marriage, buying a home, or starting a family, which society historically viewed as essential steps into mature life, are now elusive dreams. Surveys consistently reveal a profound yearning for these very things. Millennials absolutely desire these foundational elements of life. However, the stark economic reality they face transforms these aspirations into something borderline impossible to achieve without the immense privilege of family wealth or an extraordinary stroke of pure luck. This leaves countless individuals in their 30s and even 40s feeling perpetually suspended, as if they're still waiting for their real adult life to finally begin. Yet, their waiting room isn't some transitional space. It's often a cramped studio apartment, costing an exorbitant sum each month, with their much-needed therapist booked solid for months ahead. The profound impact of this prolonged state of uncertainty, where fundamental life markers remain out of reach, is a surprisingly well-documented psychological phenomenon. When the very achievements society defines as markers of adulthood become unattainable, the human brain doesn't simply adapt or shrug it off. Instead, it generates a persistent, low-level stress. This chronic stress is precisely what's termed allostatic load, a physiological state where your body remains constantly poised, prepared for a significant event or shift that frustratingly never materializes. It's akin to being perpetually trapped within the loading screen of your own life, desperately waiting for the game to start. And when you gaze at that progress bar, you realize with a pang of dread that it hasn't advanced even an inch, not a single tick, over the past decade. But let me offer a perspective that might resonate on a profoundly personal level with many, touching the very fabric of their lived experience. Millennials, as a generation, were unequivocally promised a clear and achievable trajectory, a straightforward narrative where diligent effort directly correlated with positive outcomes. This social contract outlined a simple, linear progression. Apply yourself in studies, secure a college education, land a respectable job, and steadily ascend the career ladder. This framework, an unspoken agreement between generations, felt incredibly robust and reliable, having consistently delivered success for decades prior. However, the global economic landscape underwent a seismic, unforeseen transformation, evolving in utterly unprecedented ways that caught everyone off guard. When this eager generation arrived, prepared to diligently follow the established path, they were met with a harsh new reality where the cost of higher education had skyrocketed exponentially. Furthermore, entry-level positions, traditionally gateways to careers, now ludicrously demanded 5 or more years of prior relevant experience, creating an impossible catch-22. Compounding this challenge was the crushing weight of astronomical student loan debt, often exceeding $80,000, coupled with the precarious nature of the burgeoning gig economy. In this new paradigm, individuals were reduced to independent contractors, devoid of fundamental benefits and job security, fundamentally undermining the very notion of a stable career. Psychologically, when reality starkly contradicts our ingrained fundamental beliefs about how the world fundamentally operates, we experience what is scientifically termed schema disruption. This isn't merely individual disappointment. When such a profound dissonance unfolds across an entire generational cohort, it doesn't just foster disillusionment. Instead, it precipitates a fundamental restructuring, a complete rewiring of how an entire age group interacts with established institutions, perceived authority figures, and their very conception of a secure and predictable future. This profound societal shift offers a comprehensive explanation for why millennials are so frequently, yet paradoxically, characterized by both unwavering idealism and a profound, pervasive cynicism. Despite the stark disappointments, they tenaciously cling to the inherent belief that things should be fair and equitable for everyone. However, this inherent idealism is now overshadowed by a bitter acceptance that, despite their desires, they can no longer truly believe that fairness will actually materialize for them. This constant tension between aspiration and grim expectation is essentially pattern recognition in action, informing their every interaction with the world. The pervasive cultural criticism often aimed at millennials fixates on their supposed lack of corporate loyalty, lambasting them for frequently changing jobs, a phenomenon derisively termed job hopping. This accusation frames them as fickle and uncommitted. Yet, what's psychologically compelling and often overlooked is the profound irony embedded within this very criticism. For decades leading up to this generational shift, corporate America itself had systematically dismantled the very foundations of the traditional employer-employee relationship. The bedrock of long-term commitment eroded with the widespread disappearance of company pensions, once a symbol of post-retirement security, leaving workers without a safety net. Simultaneously, secure, full-time positions began to vanish, increasingly replaced by precarious contract work, offering no fundamental benefits or stability, a stark new reality. Even more jarringly, mass layoffs, once considered extreme measures, transmuted into normalized strategic business practices, demonstrating a blatant disregard for worker welfare. Therefore, millennials did not unilaterally invent this perceived lack of loyalty. Rather, they ingeniously adapted to an employment landscape that had already undergone a radical, irreversible transformation. Their fluidity in the job market is a completely rational, almost instinctual response to an economic environment that increasingly views workers as disposable and interchangeable commodities, a truth rarely acknowledged. What remains conspicuously absent from public discourse is the crucial context of this generational adaptation, especially considering they are one of the most highly educated generations. It's crucial to acknowledge a less discussed facet. Millennials stand as one of history's most educated and diverse generations, a vibrant blend of cultural backgrounds and academic achievements. Their formative years were intrinsically linked with the dawn of the internet, shaping their worldview from a very young age through ubiquitous online connectivity and information access. This constant exposure to a deluge of information online fostered a distinct psychological profile. Individuals inherently prone to questioning, adept at navigating multiple narratives and perspectives. Consequently, this generation often challenges established norms and corporate structures, leading to perceptions of entitlement or defiance when they critique systems not designed for such scrutiny. Yet, this critical lens has positively transformed the mental health discourse. Millennials are pioneers in widely destigmatizing therapy, seeking help without shame. They're openly discussing anxiety and depression, normalizing these struggles as legitimate experiences rather than dismissing them as mere character flaws, initiating vital public conversations. However, this profound self-awareness unfolds amidst objectively worsening conditions, unprecedented student loan burdens that now seem utterly unimaginable to previous generations. They grapple with housing costs soaring far beyond wage growth, creating an insurmountable barrier to traditional milestones like stable homeownership or independent living. Compounding these financial pressures is a pervasive job insecurity, now an inherent feature of the modern economic landscape, leaving many in a constant state of precarity and uncertainty. This creates an extraordinary paradox. A generation simultaneously more attuned to their inner lives and mental well-being, yet profoundly overwhelmed by relentless external pressures.
And looking ahead, this generation also bears the immense psychological weight of witnessing active planetary deterioration, while paradoxically being told it's their responsibility to solve.
Beyond their personal struggles, Millennials uniquely experience the profound weight of observing our planet's accelerating environmental deterioration. They are told, with an almost impossible expectation, that they are the ones who must shoulder the burden and implement solutions for these monumental global challenges. This directive comes despite their comparatively marginalized institutional power and the severe lack of adequate resources available to them. The monumental scale of the ecological crisis demands systemic change, far beyond the individual or even collective capabilities they possess. This generates a pervasive, gnawing sense of existential dread, a deep-seated despair about the future. It's further compounded by an agonizing feeling of helplessness, an inability to enact meaningful change on the necessary grand scale. Such emotional and psychological burdens have led to climate anxiety being formally recognized as a legitimate and growing psychological phenomenon. Indeed, this generation finds itself directly in the crosshairs, absorbing the psychological toll of a world on the brink. This generation, the Millennials, are truly caught in the crosshairs of unprecedented societal shifts. They were nurtured with impossibly high expectations for success and happiness, creating a profound internal pressure. Concurrently, they faced overwhelming economic instability, a relentless demand for constant performance, and an extended period of delayed adulthood. They have also endured a front-row seat to an array of overlapping global crises, from environmental degradation to political upheaval. Yet, society often turns to them with bewildering questions. Why are you perpetually anxious? Why haven't you managed to buy a house? However, when you genuinely consider the immense challenges and unique pressures they have navigated, the psychological profile of millennials becomes entirely understandable and, frankly, predictable. Their emotional responses are a perfectly human reaction to a world where the very ground beneath them has fundamentally shifted. The outdated map they were given simply no longer aligns with the complex, evolving territory of modern life. If this candid reflection resonates with your own experiences or observations, please consider subscribing to our channel for more deep dives. And if you wish to actively support the continuation of these analytical explorations, please hit the Join button to become a valued channel member. Your engagement and support would be profoundly and genuinely appreciated.